I'd like to invite our panel speakers one by one. Founder of Startup Kitchen, pioneering great products like Line Do, which is also one of our media sponsors, Emrah Olgun. Founder of Zeppelin, a collaboration app for UI designers and front-end developers in order to keep their relations safe, Pelin Kenes. CEO of 8 Digits, a company that can boost your web marketing power with strategies like if this, then that, Ari Benjuya. CEO of Parachute, an enterprise that will solve small and medium enterprises where all this money gone question, Sean Yu. Founder of Volt, when he was a senior manager at Procter & Gamble, he started to wonder why everyone is traveling alone in his car, and he founded the Volt. Ali Halabi.
Yeah.
Emrah will be moderating the panel.
Yeah, so I will be.
It's on you.
All right. Can you reset the timer so I can understand if we're out of our time?
Besides, yeah, 1 hour.
All right. I'm not paying too much attention to startup panel, but on the contrary, UX is a very important part in a startup's life, and I'm going to try to ask questions to all of these good entrepreneurs. They're the best within the market, as far as I know, and so I'm going to ask questions, and you can just feel free to answer any of them. So we are going to talk about UX today, and user experience starts with defining a problem. What do you think about the biggest problem or the pain that your users are experiencing, and how do you find it and how do you define it usually? Do you want to answer it?
Yeah, I can start.
All right.
So can you hear me?
I think we have a problem with Pelin's mic. So Sean?
Yeah, is this working? It is, right? Okay. You want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Please.
Since my mic is working. Hi, everyone. So what we do, we're a SaaS company, software as a service. This is a way of delivering applications via the cloud. So it's a relatively new concept for Turkey. Specifically, what we do is financial management. So Turkey is predominantly over 99% small businesses. They don't really have access to, traditionally, they didn't have access to applications that help them understand how their finances were doing, what kind of financial situation they were in, whether they're going to be running out of cash next week, you know, how much taxes they need to pay, how much outstanding invoices they have to collect, you know, all these problems like that. So what we're trying to do is to solve this problem so small businesses can actually be on top of their finances. They can actually control their finances, and they can start growing their businesses. They can start making more profit. And hopefully through that, we can kind of help the Turkish economy. So the problem is, it's very, I'm a finance person actually, my background. And I came to Turkey about 5 years ago, and there were a lot of small businesses I was helping out with. I used to work at Endeavor, so I was helping a lot of startups and small businesses in Turkey, helping them with their finances. So that was actually through personal experience. I personally experienced the pain. I met a lot of business owners that experienced this pain. And when I started looking into this problem, started asking questions to the broader SMEs in Turkey, everyone had this pain. Everyone couldn't manage their finances.
Speaking of SMEs in Turkey, is it hard to collect data from the SMEs? I'm pretty sure that you're tracking all of the actions on your app, and it must be easy to collect that kind of data. What about the vanity metrics. Is it easy to just interview with them, or just get some feedback from them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, qualitative metrics. I mean, so we're a marketing first company. We don't have a sales team, but we get calls all the time, nonstop. So those are kind of just inbound feedbacks. We get emails from customers. Customers come and visit us. We proactively go out and visit customers as well. So everyone is very, very open to sharing their experiences with us. It's not a problem.
What is your answer?
Yeah, I have the answer, but still.
Still, we're missing the sound.
I have
for me.
still the problem. I can scream.
Yeah.
It's working.
I guess we're
It's
working.
working. So, hello again. For the ones who don't know Zeppelin, it's a collaboration app for UI designers and front-end developers. So basically, we take a design file and generate resources that developers need. So actually, the idea was born from our problem. As a team, we worked together for 3 years and built several apps. And during these projects, we always thought that the design handoff process was very tedious. I mean, after finishing a design, designers need to prepare spec sheets, resources, and like guidelines, list all the colors, fonts, and this process is very time-consuming, and it causes too many back and forth between designers and developers. Also, this might be the reason designers and developers don't get along well. We are now trying to solve this problem, actually.
I see. So the pain, as you're saying, is actually the communication in between them.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a human problem, and it's very hard to solve that kind of problems, right?
Yes, because we have two sides of the problem. I mean, you need to be very easy to understand for designers, but the product also to be taken up for the developers. So we try to combine this part, actually.
So Ali, I know that your app started as an MVP, both within the business model and also the user experience-wise. So do you believe in, obviously you're believing in starting with an MVP, but I want to just understand what's your definition of an MVP and how you started as an MVP product, a minimum viable product.
Yeah. Is it working?
It is working.
So, hi everyone. First of all, just like to explain what Volt is for those who don't know it. I think most of you don't know it. It's a ride-sharing app that we're in a very early stage right now. It's a mobile ride-sharing app that connects you with. It allows anyone that is driving around in Istanbul with empty seats in their car. It connects them to anyone going in the same direction, so that you can share a ride and split the gas costs. The reason why we're doing this is I came here 2.5 years ago. I love the city. I love Istanbul. I just hate Istanbul's traffic, and I think, and I know that the reason why it's happening is that 80% of the cars only have the driver. That's why we have this problem.
Yeah.
So I had the idea back in exactly 2 years ago. It took me 3 to 4 months to quit P&G to jump on this fully.
Well, congrats.
Thanks. But after doing that, we sat down with the team and we started thinking how much time does this take, right? Because it's really not a crude, it's not a create, retrieve, update, delete basic structure of computer engineering. It's really more complex than that. There's algorithms and there's real-time data moving. It's really complex. So the app I have in mind, or the vision, takes 2 years to build, right? So do you wait 2 years to build that, or do you build a minimal viable product and get on with it? But there was a conversation with Sean. I think we had 9 months ago when we were in Ankara. MVP doesn't mean you ship out a shitty product, right?
Yeah.
So there's this slide that I shared back in Ankara that I think it was Reid Hoffman who
That's true.
who said it. If you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've shipped too late, right? Was I embarrassed by the first product? I'm still embarrassed with the app we have today on the App Store, right? But we're learning a lot of information with that. we're learning the pain points of, not only the pain points that we thought the users would have, we're really learning how the user actually behaves, and that's the most powerful thing, that you learn from your users, not from your meetings or not from your user interviews. Because learning from 6,000 users is much better than learning from 50 user interviews.
Yeah, so the important part is actually answering those leap of faith questions,
Yeah.
getting the answers. And
because we as entrepreneurs, we always have this, wishful thinking, right?
Yeah.
We wish people, like, you say, like, people will do it. No, people don't care about your product. And, like, people won't do it, won't invest time. They just want something that really works, right? And when people reach out to you and say, we love your product, it means that, you've done all of that. I think, today I reached out to Pelin. I just love her product, right? Like, we love Zeppelin. We're using it. I told her that we're switching to Sketch just to use Zeppelin. And, why? Because it just saves us a lot of work. It saves us a lot of time. Does Volt do that today? No, we expect the user to invest these 15 seconds every time they want to get in their car, because we think people want to solve Istanbul traffic. Nobody wants to solve Istanbul traffic. They want you to do it. So you need to have that user experience that's like seamless, and you only learn it with MVP, shipping out an MVP.
So most of you except Ari are founders of your companies, right? And so what do you think about founders being the first UX designers of the tool they're producing? Maybe you want to start with it.
Yeah. I think this question is very tough for me, because when you are a founder and also designer, you don't have limits. Because normally when you are working with a customer, yeah, they all have limits, or they all have guidelines, anything. But
You have the constraints working with the
yeah,
customer.
when you start your product, you know all the problems, you know your customers. At least in our case, we know the designers and developers. But this is more tough, I think, because you need to focus on the things. They should be really easy, they should be great, but you can't control yourself, actually, because you need to say yourself stop, because you need to be lean, you have your MVPs, you need to be fast, so not too easy.
Yeah, founders are usually the vision owners, and they have the best definition of the problem, so they can come up with a really good solution to that problem and design the user experience. But it's on the contrary, most of the founders are not coming from a background that's related with user experience. But what is the user experience there? Because, for instance, you're designing for SMEs in Turkey, and the problem
I think founders intuitively, whether you come from a design background or not, you're trying to solve a problem, and you realize that the way that things are done now really sucks, and there must be a better way to do it. So, and I think that's what design is, right? Design solves problems. I mean, what's a classic quote? Designers don't put ego first. I mean, that's for artists. Designers design to solve problems. So whether we realize it or not, that's what we're doing. The thing we're making, the application we're making, is designed to solve a problem. So intuitively, you think about, okay, how do we make this easy for users? How do we take a 10-step process to a 2-step process, or whatever it is? So in my case, I have 2 other co-founders. So my background's mostly in finance, I guess. And my other co-founders, Fari is actually a designer by training, by education, by experience. And so for me, the way it started was, it wasn't that, now they talk about kind of the 3 ideal co-founders, a business guy, a developer, and a designer. That's not how I was thinking. It just, when I teamed up with Undash and we were trying to make this application that we all had in our mind, we just realized, we just couldn't do it. I mean, whatever we did, it just looked really, really bad. It just didn't work out the way that we wanted to. And so we realized, because for us, I mean, we are making an application for, the millions and millions of SMEs in Turkey who don't have time to learn a complex application. They just want to get their job done. They want to just be able to manage their finances. They want to do it quickly. So design for us is a competitive advantage. I mean, we have to make an application that has to be that simple, that intuitive. You know, the products in the market right now, they actually charge you, you know, thousands of liras for a training class that takes like, you know, 16 hours to complete. Our product, I mean, you just get started. So that's a competitive advantage for us. So I absolutely believe that, you know, designers should be part of the co-founding team.
Our company is actually a little bit different in the sense, not only that, you know, I'm not the original founder of the company, but also that there is no original designer upon the founding team. So a lot of that had to happen with, you know, from an MVP standpoint. It's get something out there that works, find out where it sucks, and fix it as fast as possible.
That's true.
And part of that is, I mean, I think what's interesting here is that with all of our products, the final form that it has taken, at least since I've, you know, started running Digits, is the problem is something that we all lived ourselves, in a sense, right? 8 Digits is a product that does campaign personalization and conversion rate optimization in real time on websites. And as an analytics guy in the past, I've used a lot of similar products, so creating campaigns was always, you know, a difficulty in terms of talking to technical teams and being able to, you know, just run a simple pop-up on a website is unbelievably difficult. For a team that is building a mobile app and, you know, redesigning their UX every single day and working with designers and developers, just running that pop-up is very difficult. And so on top of that, when you add layers of, you know, integrations, like add this event here or this there, something that I've done, you know, with Mixpanel and with Google Analytics, it just becomes so difficult to use that product that, again, you have to remove that friction. It's how can I make this product as easy to use as possible? And so we actually outsourced our original design. When the company was first founded, we're still using semblances of that design within what we're doing. But a lot of it is we use our product every day, whether it's to, you know, help customers launch campaigns or do things on our own website. Because we're using our product every day, it's a blessing and a curse. It's a double-edged sword. I know where my product sucks, and every time I come across something that's not good enough, you know, I'm mad at our own design team for not being able to do it as quickly as possible. But on the flip side, using your product every day, you start learning the workarounds and you start learning the, you know, the cheat codes, in a sense, that can make your product usable, even though it's really not usable at all. And so that's where you have to continually be in front of your customer and, again, speak with them, get their feedback, and continually create the MVP. I mean, if you talk to all of us, I think all of our products are still MVP, even though for him it's, you know, round 2, for him it's round 2. I don't know, you're round 1.5 at this point, right? Like, we still think our products are not there yet. They're the minimum viable products because the visions that we have and the products that we see in front of us just don't meet yet.
Yeah, it's mostly about the search for that,
I mean,
that aha moment, right?
MVP is like, it's a real discipline. So we have these company philosophies and someone taking a picture. We have these company philosophies. We wrote this down. So I actually erred on the side. I wrote this down. I said, so the Reid Hoffman quote is, done is better than perfect. And for us, my innate philosophy is nothing's ever perfect. So that's like an ambition you strive for. So nothing's ever done even. But then, you know, some people go so far to take that quote and they just, like what Ali was saying, just ship really bad products that barely work. They're not supposed to do, it's not the MVP because they don't work. There's no V, there's no value there. So that's one end of the spectrum. And the other end of the spectrum, and I think this is where we're doing a little bad at, because we're all perfectionists, we really want to be perfect, and we may err too much on, oh, this user experience isn't quite good enough. How do we iterate to do this better, even before releasing it? We've done this a lot of times, unfortunately, because we just, you know, err on that. And we just realize even when you, like what Ali said, when you ship it out, you start observing how users interact with it. There's a lot of learning. There's a lot of things you just didn't expect. And then whatever plan that you had for that feature, it just goes out. So it's a real discipline. You have to walk a very fine balance there for the.
So when do you think is a good time to hire a UX designer for a startup? When do you think is a good time to hire a UX designer?
Well, I don't know. It's a bad question for me because it started from the very beginning.
But that's a good answer, by the way.
At the
starting from
very
the beginning.
I mean, I think nowadays, so in the SaaS world, software as a service, this is about B2B applications, and this is no longer about how do I get a salesperson who has a huge network to go to a company sell them a license for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's a concept of consumerization of SaaS, which is how do I make a product that's so good that's almost like a consumer app? It's just as fun to use as Facebook or Twitter. How do I make it that as part of the the work process? So that is the real competitive advantage for SaaS companies, and for us, that starts at the very, very beginning. So from the co-founding stage, designer needs to be on board for us.
Let's see. What about you, Ali?
In a perfect world, from day one, yeah? But there's no perfect world. I don't think you can afford, as a startup, from day, unless he's your co-founder, you can't just afford, because UX, UI designers are one, really expensive, and two, their work is really important, but you have to hustle in the beginning to fill that gap. But the minute financially you're in a position that you can afford one, this is the highest priority position you need to fill in a startup, right? Because there are a lot of things that a UI UX designer can do that will save you actually time in terms of coding and in terms of shipping and failing and then learning, because there's this design, build, launch, learn, and then reiterate the cycle. Good
Exactly.
UI UX designers will help you design and learn in a much shorter cycle, which will help a lot. Right now in Volt we are looking for a UI UX designer. So right now we're actively looking for
So
someone.
UX,
If there's
UI
someone in there,
designers,
that's
go
it's
find
a
him.
great time to track us down and join us. But the ideal answer for when is a good time, it's as early as you can afford to, really.
Okay.
Just to add on top of that. So the challenge for the designers out there is, so I read this blog somewhere which is okay, never before have designers had such a big voice, have such a influence right on the table. And so the ambition or the goal that designers should be striving for is, how can my work influence the most people possible? It's no longer about, because I meet a lot of designers and they want to work on small things or many things at the same time. But what is the biggest impact I can have as a designer? And how do I make my voice as a designer heard from the beginning? And there's I think a slight attitude change that also needs to happen on the designer's part. I don't know if that makes sense.
I think design and let's say UX should be the core thing in a company, and you should build your company on it. If you look at Apple and Tesla right now, design is the main driver for their businesses, and it has been always like that, and it's been going like that too. But I'm agreeing with you too, because the thing is, once you have the power to afford to have a UX designer in your team, you can hire it.
Because it's really they are why are they so important? Why are UX designers extremely important, right? Because if you do any mistake at the early stage of right after strategy in UX design, you can the cost of readjusting or fixing it or turning the direction is really low. Versus what we went through, we had a UX fuck up and then we built it, MVP, launched it, and it didn't do well, right? And that pivot there at that point is really expensive, and that's what we're going through right now, right? Yeah. So, but in our case, I partnered up with an agency that they are our partners right now, and they're helping us with UX UI. So. Khan and Serkan from Hippo are doing all of that, and that's our way of fixing that gap, right? But what's the ideal for a startup? The ideal for a startup is to have that person on board with the full experience of UX UI as early as possible, because he's gonna help you pivot much and navigate much better down the road.
Yeah. So once you delivered an MVP. Then you start looking at some KPIs, and key performance indicators are the most important thing, because you are looking for searching for solutions to what you are trying to do actually, right? So what are your KPIs? Not all of them, but can you give us some examples about your KPIs and how are you evaluating it?
So there are business KPIs and there are UX KPIs, right?
Yeah.
Like
In terms of UX, maybe.
in terms of UX KPIs, we look at, for example, we use Mixpanel, right? And we track two things, like we track events like where does the user touch, and where, in places where there's no button, like, and we think the user might touch, like we put a lot of, transparent, hot zones, right? We just, know that the user is trying to, they think this is a button, for example, or they want to get more information about like this piece of information. So we use Mixpanel for that, and we also track through Mixpanel as well the time a user spends on the screen. And that's for us this was the most powerful thing to know where users are dropping off, because they usually spend a lot of time like with no action done, and then they drop out, right? And this is where you confuse the user. You didn't convert them to, in our case, we need you to either offer a ride or request a ride. And this is how we know it. Like, for example, in our main rides feed, where you see the rides, people were spending 45 seconds. Like, we're not a social media app. We don't care about you spending that much time.
Yeah.
We want you to immediately tell us where you want to go.
Yeah, that's
so that is one, UX KPI that was, raising a red flag in our faces, saying, yeah, there's something wrong in your UX, majorly wrong in your UX.
And Ari, people are usually defining their KPIs on your platform.
Yeah.
And what about your KPIs?
Yeah, so our KPIs are interesting in the sense that we not only track our own KPIs in terms of, how quickly can somebody build a scenario, how quickly can someone launch a scenario, are they able to launch a scenario?
Are you using
their site?
8 digits to just track your KPIs?
Yeah, we do the same.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to use your product every day, whether it's for yourself or for your customers. But a lot of what we're doing with our customers is trying to figure out, where their UX falls through, in a sense. So we're currently actually working with Parachute to optimize their landing pages, in a sense. And again, to some extent, it goes against every single thing that Parachute as a UX and UI company does, in a sense, to throw a pop-up on the screen after a certain point. But that pop-up and being able to A/B test that pop-up quickly definitely is, brought back feedback in terms of, what's missing on this page, what else needs to be there, what aren't we doing well enough. And a pop-up can be interesting in terms of, you look at click-through rates, definitely, you look at conversion rates overall, which again, it's part of the UX, right? Those are business KPIs and UX KPIs. If people aren't converting, then there's either something wrong with your business or something wrong with your UX. Pretty basic enough. So it's been interesting in that sense to be able to track other people's UX metrics on our site.
I see. So speaking of 8 digits, so how are your customers using 8 digits to optimize their UX?
Yeah, so the example from Sean is just kind of identifying what's missing on a landing page or how to convert more customers. Is a lot of lead generation comes through us. Interestingly enough, we have car companies and internet providers that are increasing their conversion rates to leads, in a sense, by 25, 30% just by throwing a pop-up in a different perspective. Or at a different place. That action, for some reason, delayed action or the action that a pop-up creates, even though it seems like it can disrupt the user experience, can actually bring about focus, in a sense, right? That's usable friction, because at the right time you're showing somebody the right message, and that can really help them convert.
Yeah. So in a product management team, it's one of the biggest difficulties is to decide the prioritization of what to build next. So how do you decide that, for instance, Sean?
We run around in circles a lot. Here's what we do, and I'm not saying we figure it out yet, but so on the marketing side, we have a lot of customer calls, emails, feature requests coming. We have our own vision, so we have kind of a North Star. We have this idea of where we want to go, and then we make these proactive customer visits, like I say. So we pile the list of features we want for our vision. We get all the feature requests, put them in a list as well. We have this kind of scoring system where we look at, okay, and this is something that I think Intercom does as well, is you look at the impact, meaning, is this a feature that all the users are going to use all the time? Is that really impactful? So rate those, try to address those first, as long as they go along with your original vision. Just because people want CRM for us as a financial management application, we won't build it. But if it's a feature that all the users use all the time, then that's something to consider. And then we rank, okay, let's say we limit it down to like 10 features. Then we look at, okay, in terms of development resources, is this something that's going to take a week to build? Is this something that's going to take a month to build or 6 months to build? And then we kind of address all the lowest hanging fruit. So if we have 5 features that are all ranked at a 10 in terms of impact, but one feature takes a week, then we build that one first. So this is kind of our system right now.
So it's mostly about the quantity then. It's mostly about the quantity, how many features you're delivering.
What, in terms of like
Yeah, but the value of that features are also important too, right? The value to the customer, the value to your customers, the features that you're building.
I don't understand. I mean, the value to the customers is this is something they're going to use all the time. It's going to make their lives significantly
Yeah,
better.
I know. But when you're deciding what to build next,
Yeah.
The features that you're building, they have values to the customer.
Of course,
and
yeah.
If you're deciding what to build next according to how difficult that features are to build,
Yeah.
then the values are also, because you need to have a balance in between the values, and because something can be really difficult to build, but the value it's going to add to your product can be magnificent. So
That's part of the vision. So like to give you an example, like we want to do banking integration because we have this magical idea that so you have all this financial data in your bank, but it has nothing to do with your business. It's not tied to invoices. It's not tied to expenses. But imagine if we have banking integration. You integrate, anytime you spend a credit card, anytime you send an invoice, get a payment on there, all that financial data goes into our system, so you have all the insights without doing any data entry. But that is a huge feature. I mean, business development-wise, it's taken a year now. So development-wise, it's probably going to take 6 months. That's a big feature to build. Versus let's say, creating, just one better report or something like that can deliver value. Which one do we prioritize when both are lined up at the same time, both have the same scores? It's really, really hard. I mean, I want to do the banking integration because got my vision. That's where we're leading to. I mean, I really don't have a good answer in terms of how to prioritize that, but
the way we do it on the way we do it on both, it's like mostly funnel driven, right? So we always look. In our case, it's not a really complex product in terms of like what the user can do. As a user, you either can offer a ride or request a ride, right? So we look at the funnel of like the downloads to signups, and then signups to community joining, and then community joining to either offering a ride, requesting a ride, and then the next funnel is like matching rides, and then the next funnel is like down the funnel is payments, right? And this is where we make our money, right? So this is maybe how we look at how many users will this impact, or how many users will this channel more people down the funnel, right? So right now what we're working on, the Vault 2.0, which is like launching pretty soon, is bringing more, like it's going all the way up to the funnel, at the top of the funnel, and making sure that more people convert into active users. That's one thing that we prioritize anything else on top. There are like so many features that are down there that you don't have time to get down to that level because it impacts less number of users, and that's where the funnel comes from. But sometimes you have to go down there to change something deep in the funnel that impacts your communication, right? Like something that a value proposition that you need to claim, or something that you need in your marketing. This is where you have to do something that doesn't impact a lot of users, but impacts your business communication. And these are, I mean, there's no, we're running around like headless chickens on that one.
I mean, I think really quickly, just really quick. It's as Sean said, it's impact, value, and time to develop. In a sense, those are very, very important. It's also, we all have a vision of where our product needs to be, and building things that don't fit into that vision is always unnecessary in a sense. What's interesting here is, our product has a lot of competitors in the market too. We also have to look at what the competitors are doing. We have to keep a track of what they are doing and decide whether that's coming into our funnel or not. because in one step you have to stay up with your competitors, but then the other idea is you have to move ahead of them, right? So skipping 1 or 2 steps just to get where you need to go, that can also add features to your funnel.
So, yeah. Is it working?
I still have problems.
We have a problem with the sound again.
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Taking
Yeah,
a
yeah,
leave.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I also wanted something. It can be also quantity. I mean, you said before, it's,
The quantity
example,
of the features, yeah.
in our case, we talk with more than 3,000 people, and some features, we have a huge feature list, and some of the features, I mean, we have hundreds of the wishes about just one. But here, the important thing is, I think, sometimes people want to stick on their current flow, but you have the vision. I mean, for example, in our case, Zeppelin stores all the documentation in the cloud, but surprisingly high number of people want us to export these documents as a PDF document. So that makes no sense. I mean, because we want these documents always up to date, always accessible by the team, but when we export PDF, that's nothing. So we also filter the features in this way. So also, if we do this, we explain people the reason behind it. I mean, they usually take it positively, but quantity is also the important idea here.
Yeah. So the amount of features that you're building is important, but the thing is, what you're talking about is basically listening to your customers and answering their questions and letting them making the prioritization, or just because you have the vision, you go after building what you want to do and explain them. This is a very hard optimization problem, right?
It's a tough choice as a co-founder.
This is the innovator's dilemma.
Yeah.
I don't know if you read the book, but like this is a great book about, you know, usually like the users. I mean, we've had some CRM integrations. We have like intercom going on. We have an email that goes to users, and users are replying to it, and they are giving us a lot of feedback, right? But almost like no user really knows what the solution is, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to tell you ideas that, you know, in most cases it is, you know, applicable only to them, but just doesn't tick on your strategy, right? Or like this guy, he gave us a 1-star on the App Store, and he was like, the app doesn't work. I'm trying to go from Diyarbakir to Adana. And we're like in Istanbul, I'm trying to push ride sharing in Istanbul and like solve Istanbul traffic. So like you have these like that, you know, feedback that is a bit off, but then, you know, users they know how they have a problem, one. They also sometimes, like most of the time, and this is before they are users, they are like prospects. They don't know that they need your product, right? I mean, no one knew that they needed a car. Everyone thought that, you know, the horse was perfect, right? Nobody knew that they needed sticky notes. But, you know, like when it came out, it was just, you know, spot on. Yeah, I needed this. I needed to write notes and be able to move them, and, you know, that was brilliant, right?
Yeah.
So this is where, you know, I think it takes for marketing, because I come with a marketing hat, but I think, you know, UX designers are also marketeers. This is where you have to unlock that powerful insight, right? And you have to turn it into a feature, and you have to figure out how big of a priority that is. Like, you have to turn that insight into an action, and, you know, you just have to be good at it, right? Like,
yeah, some of the comments like that, like what you told, can come from people not within the domain expertise. If they're missing the domain expertise, yeah, you can just close your ears to them, and you just avoid making mistakes.
not closing your ears. You need to listen, but you need, like, they're not going to give you the answer. Everyone will come to you with a problem, right? and it's you and your team doing, you know, all the UX literature that is out there, all the, you know, processes to turn that problem, right, that everyone's complaining about, right, into like a solution that they would actually pay for.
Yeah.
And that transition is, you know, what UX is all about.
But in Pinin's case, their tool is for UX designers and front-end developers.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to not listen to them, right?
Yeah.
Because, but maybe, I want to ask about that.
They have the problem, but they also have the solution. I mean,
yeah, they come up with that kind of feedback.
Yeah, that's a different case. Like this,
that
totally
can be frustrating sometimes, right?
yeah, but not frustrating.
Really?
That's good. Yeah. Because, yeah, our users are designers and developers. So when you ask a regular user to give you feedback, they tell you lots of things. So you need to pick the important ones. But in our case, we ask designers to give feedback on a design tool. So they are really eager to help, and they're to the point. I mean, you can't imagine how many times I get lots of sketches, prototypes, wireframes. I don't think that you are getting them.
Yeah, I'm getting that back. It's not frustrating.
So
it can be good too.
It's our
They're using Zeppelin to
luckiest
do
part,
that. Sent to you.
So you're getting wireframes, sketches, and that kind of
Yes.
feedback too.
Yeah.
I think
They're
you're
doing it
lucky.
for you, right?
We are the luckiest
Yeah.
top right here.
And that would be nice to have.
Okay.
Right, right?
We have 20 more minutes. I have two more questions. So there's a myth about split tests, A/B tests, and most people, most founders, most startups are avoiding them. And I want to understand if it's a myth or not. Any of you guys are doing split tests, A/B tests, other than landing pages?
So here's the thing, like, I think most of us have an application. It's really hard to A/B test an application because that requires you to develop two different versions of it.
Yeah.
Maybe you can, you know, A/B test the color of a button, whether that does anything, but we don't have enough resources to deliver one version of Parachute and test it with another version of Parachute.
Yeah, but
And it's not an e-commerce site, so all the different parts of it interacts with each other. So that would be a rewrite of the entire front end. And for us, within the app, it's really, really hard to pull off of it. I don't have a good way to pull it off.
But what if two team members of a product management team have a conflict about putting a button to the upper right corner or the bottom of that screen?
I mean, there's a design language, so what we aim for is consistency. So it's not like, you know, on one page you have the button up here, on the other page you have the button down there. No, the design should be consistent. So that, it's like, you know, that consistency is already coded into the design language. The design language may morph so what happened is we started adding, you know, various features. So our V1 design language then got outdated. So the new things that we added just didn't fit within that design language anymore. And then, so, you know, via various metrics, talking to customers and so on, we redid the design language, tweaked it a little bit to expand it to accommodate the new features. But I mean, I wouldn't be putting buttons in different places and A/B testing that way.
I think that's where you can, I mean, there's a few things there. One, for an app like Sean's, you know, there's so many different tools out there, usertesting.com, right? At a certain point, that's where the MVP comes back into play, right? When you're building a whole new version of an app, you know where you want to go. So building two quick MVPs and trying to fix on those is very interesting. I mean, there's a story of a man, going back to MVP really quick, but somebody who's trying to build a iPad app for children and coloring, right? And as opposed to building an entire iPad app, he just brought out a sketchbook and like put 3 different colors on the page, red, yellow, green, or whatever, and like had this child like, they would tap the red and then he would hand them a red crayon and they would start to, you know, color into this coloring book, which is, you know, it's an MVP in the sense that there's no design or no anything necessary. And that's, so from a app A/B testing standpoint, I think user testing becomes really important at that point because you're trying to get an idea of how people are using your app currently, how they might want to use this new feature, and you can, in fact, test on a design as opposed to having to do a full development. A/B testing is unbelievably useful, but you need to be doing it for the right things, right? And then it's useful in marketing, definitely, in terms of what your call to actions are, what your colors are going to be, what those things are going to be. So definitely, whatever you're doing on your website, there is something that you can be A/B testing actively. And so in that sense, I do believe in A/B testing very strongly. If you're not A/B testing something, you're probably doing something incorrectly. I mean, even in the sense of, Volt has a website at the end of the day, even though it's just an app. And while you can't A/B test within the app very easily, people who do visit the website, are they clicking my download button or not? I mean, that's something that you can A/B test just by saying, what are the different messaging that I'm trying, don't sit in traffic is one potential message, meet new people is another potential message, like which of these messages resonate with people, that's an A/B test. You don't necessarily need to test a button or test a call to action in that sense. You can actually test the emotions that you're trying to bring out of your customers as well. So I'm a firm believer in A/B and split testing. Do recognize that it has limitations in terms of what you can do, but I definitely think you need to be A/B testing something.
As far as I know, we can use 8 digits as an A/B testing tool
definitely.
too, right?
That's what we're doing with Sean right now. Do people want to be called, or do they want an extra free month of Parachute? We're testing it. They want an extra free month of Parachute. Nobody wants to be called, but at the end of the day, maybe it's just adding a phone number to the bottom of that thing will get you guys to have more calls and go from there.
So, yeah, please.
So within the app, so definitely A/B testing for the marketing site. I mean, it's but then you have to go into the analytics. Is it is it one tail, two tail? Like you really have to understand what that test is telling you as well. I think some people, because every time you run something optimizedly, it seems to be better, but then you rerun the same thing, so you have to really understand the statistics there. And then the thing I can't figure out, so we have one feature, salaries, for example. People requested, everyone requested that. We developed it, launched it, but and then we measure whether, it's being adopted, and the adoption rate for that is terrible. But then the thing is, okay, did we just, the way we made the feature made it too, complex or, too hidden. There are a lot of details there. Maybe we just didn't make a good feature. Or is it really that people said they want it but actually didn't want it? And that's a hard thing to A/B test. I don't know. I mean, you can't just slap salaries out there and not have it and see, okay, how's that going to affect things?
We'll have that conversation over coffee. I have ideas.
So, yeah.
I was going to talk to Sean.
All right,
we'll have a coffee.
So first, a question for Zeppelin. How many of your customers are within Turkey, and how many of them are global?
Just 1% of our customers from Turkey.
1%?
It's just Volt.
Okay, so this question is going to make sense for all of you, and it's a difficult one. But how does it feel like to build for people which you're not sharing the culture, which you're not which has the culture that you haven't born into? Because cultural aspects of the behavior is a very defining thing. And all of you guys are building for people that you're not sharing the culture that. You're sharing most of the aspects of the culture because you're living, I know most of you became Turks, but how does it feel like to
Yeah, I think we share the culture by dating and marrying Turkish ladies. So that's one big sharing of the culture. But I mean, in Volt's case, I come from Beirut, which is like, I'm not from Berlin, so it's like a closer culture. It's pretty much the same culture. But so it's not very different. But still there are, I think both, like as a founder or as a UX designer, you don't have to be from that culture, but you have to understand it, right? Like you have to study it, you have to, grasp all the understanding, because this is where the insights are. In Volt's case, a lot of, people in the beginning, they said, no way, I would never do this, right? But, one powerful insight we had was the community's sense. Like I saw my wife, she was like, no, this will never work in Turkey because people don't trust each other in Istanbul, but people trust each other inside communities because, the komşuluk, feeling is a strong feeling that we have, right? So when we introduced the communities feature, that picked up, incredibly well, right? Everybody's signing up to communities, and they do share rides within communities, and they blindly trust each other. So I really don't think it really matters whether you were born here or not, as much as it matters that you need to study that culture, understand it, unlock these insights, and from there, you build on it.
Can I have an answer from all of you guys?
Yeah, so I mean, so my perspective is, so design is serving a purpose, a function. It's not creating literature, it's not creating a painting where, literature, painting, all these other forms may need to be more rooted in, let's say, culture as sort of, the definition, a more generic definition of culture. Whereas good design is universal because it serves a purpose, because there's a problem, design's there to solve it. Exactly. So from that perspective, I mean, we do have, let's say, cultural things, let's say, do people trust us, do people want to engage with a cloud application, all of these, I mean, but I wouldn't say that's my definition of cultural, as what is Turkish culture, how does our application fit in? So I would say that design, as long as it's solving the problem, serving, having the function, having the purpose, then it's universal. It's be it Turkish, US, whatever.
But how long have you been living in Turkey right now?
Almost 5 years.
Almost 5 years. But so, don't you feel like that while the time passes, you're getting more experience about Turkish culture?
Of course. I mean, my American friends come, I start kissing them both cheeks, right?
I did it today. It was really weird. They looked at me strange.
No,
I mean, like both said, I mean, it's a lot about listening and creating good design. But listening and studying is very important. But sometimes you learn, good UX or good sales tactics in a sense by just running into a brick wall. Having come from America in a sense, for me, a lot of our customers are enterprise customers, and it's do it yourself is supposed to be such a big thing in the United States, right? I mean, the whole idea of your Praktikar and your Koçtaş would come from your Home Depot in the United States. Is everybody wants to do it themselves, and so we built this fantastic UX that everybody wants to do themselves, and then we're just losing out to big customers because they don't want to do it themselves. The enterprise world in Turkey is like, no, you do it for me, and then do whatever. Which you just run into a brick wall and then you change your strategy. And sometimes that is the case. And I mean, there are always those funny stories of matching your product or how you do things to your culture. It's definitely a part of it, but you either have to listen or learn the hard way, in a sense, and it happens.
How are you feeling?
Yeah, for our case, to build a tech product, it's not that matter, but yeah, because you have lots of best practices to follow, driven by Google, Apple. They're all the big companies that all designers follow. But in our case, the communication between our users and us is very hard, because in Turkey people are not that close each other, I think, because also we see the bad things of the products. I mean, for example,
You're good at seeing the bad things first, right?
For example, our Turkish
Everyone is like that.
users are always complaining about the bad bugs, that kind of bad stuff. But in the US and European countries, it's really different. They are really positive, and they are even excited than us. So when we talk each other, so we are trying to adapting this communication stuff, I think, not with product, but with our communication, actually.
Yeah. Okay, those are all my questions. I think we are early, and it's going to help the organization too, because they're delaying right now, and we're missing lots of our audience, as I can see.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening us today. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. I think it was great.